Light pollution news, February 2026, warm yellow richness. Hello, you at home. We have a great show for you today. Joining me from AstronEra is Shweta Kulkarni. We have a return visit from one of my favorite nighttime photographers, Mr. Josh Dury. And joining all the way from across the Delaware, dark sky, New Jersey's Jim Webster. This episode, did you hear Maine has a new responsible lighting law? Wow. And how are our feelings influenced by light? Oh, and Dark Sky International released a design for a new car. Yeah, a new car. All this and more coming right up on this episode of Light Pollution News. Welcome to another Light Pollution News. I'm your host, Bill McGeaney. Very glad that you could join us today. If this is your first time with us, we do Light Pollution News twice a month and cover all of the news in and around this highly diverse topic of our nighttime environment. Light Pollution News is a listener-supported show, which means that we keep this thing running solely on the revenue that we receive from you, the listener. If you're already a supporter, thank you. If not, why not consider becoming a supporter? In addition to helping us cover our bills, you receive full news pools that we gather each month. If you're interested, learn more about being a supporter by clicking the Support the Show link in today's show notes. And moving on, I have just one more item. I know we have a lot of listeners, but only a handful of ratings and reviews. If you like what we produce on our website for you, if you like our newsletter, we have the new Ecology 2025 wrap-up that went out. If you guys like that, we kindly ask if you could provide a rating and review via whatever podcast app that you use to listen to the show. I'd like to welcome to the show for the first time, Shweta Kulkarni. And Shweta is the director of AstronEra, an organization I've heard a lot about, in part because of our common friend, that being the great Yana Yakashina. Shweta, you're an astronomer, a science communicator, political strategist, a true pioneer in the Indian world, especially in the up-and-coming dark sky scene and the astronomy scene out there. In 2018, Shweta received the recognition from the Department of Science and Technology as one of India's top 100 women entrepreneurs. Shweta participated as a fellow for the Royal Astronomical Society in 2018 as well. And in 2024, Shweta became the first Indian to receive the Dark Sky Defender Award Asia. And Shweta, you've been doing this for a long time, right? Like your passion ignited when you were a kid, right?
Yeah, when I was 16. Actually, I've been interested in astronomy since I can remember forever. And it's always been a passion. And I just, the sky was never the limit for me. So yeah, since very long time. Thank you, Bill, for inviting me on this show. And I also want to take this opportunity to thank Yana Yakashina. She's a very close friend and co-author for my first scientific report that I ever published. So yeah, I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, Yana is great. Great friend of the show. And Shweta, you put together something I think pretty amazing. Why don't you tell me about AstronEra? It's a learning platform, right, for anyone interested in space and the stars. And I got to think, you probably had a big bump now that India is actually playing in the stars. Now you see the enlightenment. I have friends in India who, they know that I do astrophotography, and they started texting me wondering how I do it. And it all started happening once India started launching up into space.
So, yeah, of course. I mean, there are these big missions like Chandrayaan and Mars Orbiter mission that we are very proud of, and that got people talking. In fact, even when I was a little kid, I would always look up to missions and updates from ISRO, and I've watched all of them launch with tears in my eyes, and it's all been very exciting. But I think the outreach could be better. When I go out there and I still talk to people, stars and space seem somehow a little bit away from their reach. And that's why I got a little bit into science communication. And I realized that when I bring the stars closer to people, it becomes about their culture, about their livelihoods, about their community. People want to know how they are related to the stars. Not in an astrological way, in an astronomical way, I try to do it. And actually, one of the amazing things that I found out in the Constitution of India, tomorrow is actually one of the important days in India where we celebrate the Constitution. It's the Republic Day. So I would like to quote, we have in our Constitution Article 51AH, which mentions that it is our duty, constitutional duty, to carry a scientific temper. And Article AG quotes that it is our duty to protect the environment. That is the natural darkness of the night as well. So I would like to take this opportunity to remind all my fellow Indians on this public day when we are recording this, that we should follow this duty and protect the night sky. Your connection to the stars that bring people closer with astronomy, and not really the space missions as much. It brings out the curiosity, but when you look up to the sky filled with stars, that's what's going to give you this wonder, and that's what got me to this question that I ask now to the administrators, that who gets to wonder about the universe? Is it the tribal people staying in the forests where there is abundance of beautiful dark starry skies? Or is it us in the urban areas who have seen this development and stars vanish overnight? And light pollution is one of the pollutions that we can completely mitigate, very easily. So why not work on it?
When you advocate and when you try and pass this message along, you mentioned something in there about a cultural bond that Indians have with night. How is that different from, say, how we treat light pollution or how we talk about it here in the West versus in India?
So in Indian context, especially now that I'm dealing with the dark sky policy development, I am pushing for it in the state of Maharashtra particularly. That's where I'm from. When I walk into an administrator's office, I cannot go in there saying, hey, let's protect the night sky, because there are some real questions. There is hunger, there is poverty, there is unemployment. And the room will go quiet if I start talking about dark sky conservation. But when I open the conversation with culture and livelihoods and job opportunities and astrotourism, the room listens. So I guess that's how I have started driving this conversation, and also involving different administrators from different departments on different levels. So, of course, you have heard that our chief minister announced the dark sky policy, but that was an announcement.
We featured that, and we featured that.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I was sending that message on WhatsApp to all the administrators. Look, we are getting international visibility now. We really need to do something with this announcement. And that's where the real work started. So now I'm working with the state governments with different departments. So there is Department of Environment that's, of course, should be taking the lead on this. There is Department of Tourism that is looking into dark sky conservation through astrotourism. And just this month, couple of days ago, Department of Archaeology released guidelines following up on CMS guidelines and Dark Sky International's guidelines about light pollution. And they are actually making conservation of dark skies possible with governance. And I think that is the best way for the administration to follow this, saying that dark sky is not negligence, but it's governance.
Well, good luck. Very much looking forward to seeing what all happens. Definitely keep us in the loop as it goes. You're doing amazing work. And I want to tap your brain a little bit more on AstronEra in the next episode. But for now, let me swing over to some of my other guests. And I want to welcome back Josh Dury, the star man. Josh, you were last on the show back in July of 2024. And you appeared on episodes We Need Better Resolution and To a Better 2045. That was a fun one. Since that time, I feel like your photography career has really taken off. It's kind of insane. You have a book that you released, the 52 Assignments Night Photography. What happened there? Why don't we catch up? Where's been going on? 2025 was like a banner year for you. So I feel like, missed out on a lot.
It has been chaotic. So first of all, Bill, thank you very much for having me back on the show. And 2025 was just mental, really, from having images endorsed by NASA to then Apollo 11 astronaut Buzz Aldrin. All of what was happening there was massive. And so when going out to photograph the total solar eclipse from Dallas, Texas in 2024, to then be told that, would you like a book deal? So to be given that opportunity to go center stage, with 52 assignments night photography, to see it go into major bookshelves here in the United Kingdom, and then to see a book launch over the water in the United States was massive. But for me, it was this core principle about sustainable approaches for astrophotography. So I'm sure we can all appreciate them when we take photographs of the night sky. It is the closest thing we can imagine to magic. So when you see a solar eclipse or the northern lights, a meteor shower, it is just simply and utterly magical. But as the subject has gotten more and more popular, beauty hotspots are getting very popular. And so it can be natural now for when you wait and watch for the Milky Way to rise, you can expect to see maybe 50 to 100 photographers in a single location. So it's more my concern from the background of photography and as an astronomer as to how portable sources of light pollution from simple head torches are affecting not only taking images, but also local environments, wildlife habitats, and just this simple movement towards using red torches. And so that's what I'm trying to address through this publication, is by getting more of us interested in taking images, we all learn these takeaway aspects and how it can affect our everyday lives. So starting with the images and branching on out.
Josh, I was just laughing when you said about the headlamps. I see a guy with a headlamp almost every day that is as bright as a car headlight. And
it's meant, yeah.
Yeah, it boggles my mind why you need that, especially in a city where, okay, it might get a little dim, but it never gets dark in the city. It's on cloudy nights, it's pretty bright here. This guy has like a headlamp and you can see it zooming when
Absolutely. Where it's chaotic. And when, in the past I've seen footpaths or trails and you just see it all completely lit up at night. And you do wonder, what is that doing? So as the popularity of astrophotography increases, it's what can we do? All these questions to create foundation to protecting the subject we love. Otherwise, things like dark sky places, that's going to affect light pollution in that manner, but also even littering as well. I've seen that before at beauty hotspots where there's this lack of respect for these areas, and it's just reinforcing what we all need to do to take consideration for our environment effectively.
Yeah, and I'll note for listener at home, especially U.S. listeners, beauty hotspots is essentially the national park equivalent here in the U.S. That's just the terminology used over there in the U.K. And I thought on the headlamp thing, again, when you're talking about the whole trail lit up, it was some time ago, years ago. I can say that since I'm old now. I was doing the John Muir Trail in California. We went up to Half Dome right at dusk. And it was actually a magical moment up there, just incredible. You're going up Half Dome, the sky's changing, the stars are coming up. And when you look down, it had this kind of picturesque little snake of warm light cutting through the trails. It wasn't super bright because we didn't have LED headlamps. I mean, there were probably LEDs, but there weren't these super powerful LEDs at that point. And nowadays, I can picture just the whole thing being lit up completely, like you're saying, being flooded out with lighting. Yeah, I guess that might change that image I had back then, but it was actually pretty neat to see then. Well, my last guest here in the U.S., you've probably, at least on the East Coast, you've probably heard of him. I think, Jim, you kind of sit here a little more under the radar than you actually are, but I have someone that is a dark sky advocate, a Psi starter ambassador, and an all-around good guy, Jim. At least that's what I've heard from some good friends. I haven't met you yet, but some good friends have said you're a great guy. So, Jim Webster, welcome to the show, and thank you for joining. I know we had a little bit concerns early on, but you're here. You're with us. I'm very glad.
Yeah, thank you. Started a couple of years ago. Milky Way photography is what started this whole road. Joining the local astronomy group, the Astronomical Society of the Toms River area. And as I was getting more and more involved in it, I was like, yeah, there's a lot of light pollution here. So me being me, I started Googling everything, found Dark Sky International. And shortly after that, I became an advocate. started getting into public presentations at the county parks, the libraries, as well as the local government facilities in New Jersey. And at the time, I was really the only one doing it. Other people started becoming advocates, and we decided to form our own local Dark Sky New Jersey organization. And as more and more people came on board, it's just been, mushrooming in what we're doing. And now we're looking at actually becoming our own 501c to take it to the next level. And we have enough people now where I don't have to travel all the way up to upstate New Jersey. I could just stay, in the southern end. And the SciStarter, which is a citizen science project hub, that involvement started because of a program that you would find on Dark Sky is called Globe at Night, which allows people to participate studying the night sky in reference to light pollution. And from there, I got involved in other projects with SciStarter. SciStarter is a very vast citizen science project hub started by Darlene Cavalier. It's in the environmental, medical, space science. There's like a couple hundred, projects that anyone can do. So they kind of like all mesh together when I do presentations now. If it's astronomy, it'll be astronomy, light pollution, citizen science projects. If I'm doing just dark sky projects, it still involves SciStarter because of the Globe at Night program. It's been going pretty good, what we're doing. Now I've been getting involved with the parks, like Great Swamp National Wildlife. I helped them with their dark sky light pollution exhibit. And we have another one going into a place here locally called Jake's Branch County Park, which would be the biggest light pollution exhibit in New Jersey once they get it completed.
Jim, what do these light pollution exhibits look like?
One of them in Great Swamp is sort of like a table with an information board that you would get from Dark Skies. I had designed a board for them to put together from, information that we picked up from Dark Sky. And so they got that posted on the wall. Jake's Branch is going to be something different. It's going to have hands-on for kids involved. They're planning on having a tree of the wildlife that would be impacted by light pollution, which would sit along with the other exhibits they have there. And then we'll have the information boards as well. Another thing would be books on light pollutions for kids. And, the kids can actually sit down on the floor and literally, read the book.
Good stuff, Jim. And if you notice the accent there, I think this is probably going to be a good one for anyone who likes hearing a lot of variety in voices today. Jim, you have an incredibly hard New Jersey accent. Partner that up with Josh's very deep UK accent and Shweta's very deep Indian accent. This is going to be a good one for you listening at home today.
Yeah, I'm actually originally from Brooklyn, New York. So I think it kind of like leans towards that, but I just don't start the conversation with, yo, Mo, what's up? Yeah.
Jim, you're advocating in one of the densest states in America. I think it could be said, if you can make it in New Jersey, you can make it anywhere.
Yeah. And, to add on to that, there's actually a bill on the table. It's getting refreshed into the next session for the New Jersey government for the light pollution ordinances that would involve government facilities as well as government-sponsored projects. We had to tweak the bill a little bit. The Department of Transportation had some, rightly concerns on it. So they're making adjustments to it. We got a couple of places in New Jersey that's actually looking to do the dark sky urban certification, where it is, they may not be perfect in the light pollution concerns, but they're educating the public about it and hoping more people, get involved in it. We have Hopewell, New Jersey is a sample right now that they're working on it. Island Beach State Park is another one that's been working towards it. They've changed all their air filling stations for the surf casting fishermen that have to deflate their tires to go out on the beach and reinflate them. So they changed them from regular lights to light sensors that only go on when it's needed.
That's great news. And yeah, we'll learn more about some of this stuff in the beginning of the second episode. But That's pretty impressive. You know, you've done a lot of work. You put together a team. You have people in New Jersey who are starting to advocate on this, and you're seeing some serious headway. So kudos to you, and thank you for.
On that, it's not just Dark Sky members, but we've partnered with the Sierra Club as well, and we're hoping to link up with the Audubon Society as well as the Dark Sky groups from other states. They kind of like join us in our meetings, put things together and just make the whole thing grow.
Great news. Great stuff. Well, I want to start today's episode off with a good little warm up here. Dark Sky, I don't know if you guys saw this. Dark Sky International released the design of a concept car at the Detroit Auto Show, which took place on January 14th through 25th. There are no internal specs for this car, so I'm assuming Dark Sky was clearly trying to make the case of the exterior features. For your home who hasn't seen it, it's pretty slick, utilizing strategically placed LEDs for adaptive lighting. Dark Sky specifically wanted to bring into focus how light headlights, namely, create glare and could potentially impact oncoming drivers and what they call stress for wildlife. The car seeks out some sort of automotive zen with the night, or as Dark Sky says, shaped so the night can breathe. This is an intriguing concept. Some of the ideas here, like using LiDAR instead of relying on excessive lighting, is something that is pretty much in use now, I believe, for many automated cars. What do you guys think of this vehicle mock-up? Does it raise awareness of light pollution, or does this make Dark Sky come off a bit cartoonish?
For me, truthfully, when I first saw it, I thought of the movie Tron.
Yeah. It does kind of look like something out of Tron. I can see that.
Yeah, it's definitely futuristic looking, and I really love the design. And most of all, I love the message that it's giving. I think maybe Jim can agree with me that making the community aware of the issue is really important and really difficult thing to do. So this car is something that catches someone's eye with its design and its direction, and it gives this message that light intensity is not as important, but it's the design and direction that is, paving the way here.
Yeah,
I would like that from a photographic perspective, especially when you start to see images of these bright headlights going through a scene. But then also, like we've discussed, this message as well, it's quite a massive topic to bring to something like an automotive awareness. And again, spreading the message even further. And as we are looking into wildlife conservation, when we do see wildlife on our roads, they can be stunned by super bright headlights. So again, this is another great consideration, I think, here.
Do you think that the average person would look at this and be like, this is crazy?
I think they think this is cool.
I like it, but I think people higher up in society may be interested in just because of the sleekness of the car. It all depends on how much it's going to cost. Hopefully it's not a cost prohibitive type vehicle, because if it's not, I'll definitely go for it myself. Besides the wildlife, the driving problems we have here in the U.S. because of the high-powered intensity lighting on the cars, it makes it really dangerous to drive. And if you're an older individual like me, your vision takes a lot longer to reset, and that creates a road hazard there as well. And I have found that I've literally had to pull over to the side just to get my vision back. So if it makes things safer, I'm all for it. The toughest individual that you're going to have for light pollution is going to be from your 55 and over community. A lot of people want things brighter, but on the other hand, once they start driving, then it becomes a problem for them. So if this vehicle could become like the starter for other, vehicles as we get further and further down the road, it'll make it much safer for us older folk.
Jim, you mentioned a lot of people want to have stuff brighter. You're talking about 55 and ups want to have stuff brighter. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, the 55 and over communities, because they have their vision concerns as you get older, they feel that they need more light. And I try talking to a lot of people in these communities, and being set in their old ways, it's a tough nut to really, get the message out to them. They want it brighter because of their visual problems, but they don't realize that by making it brighter, then you're creating also like a lot more glare, and it's not helping them. So it's an educational thing, I think, more, in the 55 and over community.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I've been curious about that. Josh, yeah, feel free.
I was back on what Jim said there. That's really interesting because by having a design which is different to other, say, vehicles on the market, for something just to be a little bit different, it's got a story. And so I'd say from a consumerist background, it will make people want to engage. And so with people who do have life experiences, and I'm exactly the same here, in the UK, we have super bright LED lights. And yeah, it dazzles me as well. I know some people who wear specialist glasses just to filter some of this light, which I know it seems quite blasé, but it's happening. And so then, it can be a unique selling point, as it were, so that it spreads the message, which I think is a clever move in the consumerist market.
Well, one thing that we haven't talked about, we talked about the brightness, but we haven't talked about your feelings, guys. And I'm curious about your feelings here. How are you guys doing? Are we in touch with our feelings? I have one article that's going to be coming up, and it's going to talk about light and your emotion derived from light. I think it's pretty neat. I've always been a fan of concerts. So you at home, you guys know I'm a Humphreys McGee fan. And being an Humphreys fan, I think maybe 15 years ago, they started doing these great light shows at the concerts. I didn't realize what they were doing, but now everyone does that all the time now. And that's kind of like it goes hand in hand with going to a show. You have an amazing light show that's going on there. And the stage is usually designed in a way that creates some kind of suspense and creates some kind of interaction with, tugs at kind of your emotion with the music, which is pretty cool. So I was curious when I saw this out of lighting design and applications. It looked at how lighting influences our experience with music. A team out of the Clemson University converted a university room into a sealed listening lab and adjusted LED fixtures. They put 22 adults in a room, forced them to spend 15 minutes adapting to one of the 4 lighting conditions: warm white, cool white, red, and blue. These subjects then rated 1-minute music clips on a 10-point scale for how positive the songs felt and whether the lighting matched their mood. For happy music, warm white light produced the strongest positive feelings, and for sad music, red light received the lowest ratings, and blue emerged as the best match. Hey, does anyone have any thoughts on this? Is this kind of what you expect? What's your experience with emotion and I guess light color?
I do think that emotions and light color sort of coexist. I mean, I have always associated somehow emotions with color. And for me, warm yellow light is sort of more richness, I guess, because I associate that with gold somehow. Or red light is more sort of passion and aggression. Or blue color in general, or blue light is, more about trust. Green, of course, is nature. So, yeah, I think those studies I pretty much agree with. I would say I don't know about the blue one, like why blue received like such low ratings.
I was thinking about that. And Jim, you're just talking about being blinded and having the glare issue as a driver and whatnot. And I don't know about you guys. When I'm driving here in Philadelphia, we have a mix of 3,000 Kelvin streetlights and 4,000 Kelvin streetlights. And you can almost go under a 3,000, 4,000, 3,000, 4,000, like in succession. And as you drive through, the warmer ones, I feel calmer. And when it's brighter, I feel tenser. And I feel this. And I don't know if anyone else here actually feels this when you're out there.
I would back that, especially with photography. So if using, say, social media, you accompany music to go with an image to heighten the sense of emotion. So for people who knew me, I love 80s music and I love synth. So when you see these massive concerts using all these certain colors or even displays to interact an audience, where even a simple iPhone shining a light, it just looks like a sea of stars, doesn't it? So it's like putting that aside and comparing that with, say, a Bortle scale 1 location and what power just nature or that resonance to nature can do, it really can sort of lift you. It can create quite an emotional experience. So it's just, mixing science with art. And I think that's quite a clever mix of two worlds.
Josh, I want to follow up on that. When you're out shooting the Milky Way, do you feel like you have an emotional connection with that light?
A very transcendent experience, Bill. I can remember an experience as of last year going to the Outer Hebrides in Scotland. It's one of the few actual dark sky locations we have left in the UK, Bortle Scale 1. And when you look at the light of the Milky Way and you see that glow with your eye, more so that it looks like a photo, but it's there in front of your eyes, and you see that starlight glowing over the loch and a body of water for international listeners. And just to experience that and be at one with the universe, it is some of the most touching experiences of my life. It makes you realize how small you are. I know it's a cliche statement to make, but it's just how it affects the soul. And that is a very powerful object indeed.
Yeah, I agree with Josh on that. When I'm out there doing Milky Way photography, my adrenaline just skyrockets, just being out there, and I could be out there for hours, doing what I like to do. So yeah, all power to what Josh said.
One of the things that I got into a couple years back, and I can't do it often, but when I have excessive time in a dark sky spot, which Josh, I think you'll understand this, and Jim, you can probably understand this pretty well. Doesn't happen very often, but when you do have some excessive time, I started doing I think it's the rare or the obscure constellations list in the Astronomical League, which are a whole bunch of constellations that sit at 6 magnitude. It's thrilling. It's really thrilling because you really get to get intimate with the dim stars that you never really pay attention to. And you get to let your brain kind of tease that out and let the imagination kind of sift through, develop the lines that are supposed to be there. Just really interesting stuff.
Yeah. At Island Beach State Park, we actually get to do things like that because a lot more of the stars will come out. Keeping it from a local New Jersey perspective, it's great. And I actually do constellation presentations as well. And they don't get to see a lot of the stuff that's in the program. So I tend to limit it for kids, for the circumpolar constellations, because they're easier for them and you can still see those stars out there. Yeah, the Astronomical League with that program, that's great.
Yeah, I back what Jim said, so what you said, Bill, that when you interact with starlight, and I've experienced this when I've been lucky enough to travel to the Southern Hemisphere, that sense of vertigo that you get because you're so used to seeing the night sky in one fashion, but then you see it in another. And you almost have to acclimatize yourself, even if it's for 20 minutes, just to think, wow, what am I looking at? 6 magnitude constellations as well. Phenomenal.
Shweta.
I definitely agree with you, Josh, there. I recently went to New Zealand, and going from Northern Hemisphere to Southern Hemisphere, and the difference in the stars just, makes you feel so different. But I wanted to mention about the colors and the stars, going back to that conversation. When I learned about the temperature differences in stars, and I'd look up in the sky and see a red star, then I would know that it's a red giant star and it's going to be cooler than the blue giant star. And that was one of the most interesting things about the colors and the light and the stars. And being able to see this in the natural dark skies, I think this brought up the conversations of light pollution better in perspective to people who are new at this concept and seeing the colors flashing against the dark natural night sky.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's move to a little more practical news here. Policy news. Jim, you mentioned that you had a bill in New Jersey. I was going to ask you about this, so you already got kind of to it. Because I don't want to say it died, but didn't move last year in 2025, right?
Yeah, it had gotten the attention, and when it branched out to all the government groups after it had gotten passed, they started looking at it like what we can and can't do. So now we're in that adjustment phase for the bill to get modified from the sponsors of the bill in the state government, and it's back on the table again. So it hasn't gone away. It's just getting fine-tuned right now. We'll hope we'll get it, passed with this new session.
And that got through the Assembly, and it got through the Senate as well?
Yes.
So it's sitting with the governor, just making some tweaks.
Well, it's gone back for the retweaks, and then it'll go back through the Assembly and the Senate again.
Gotcha. Okay, well, this segues nicely to the Maine news. And by Maine, I mean the state Maine became the first state here in the U.S. to take a stand against light pollution. Though the final bill really didn't get fully included, it still carries a lot of weight. It got chipped away a little bit, which I presume, you're going to have no matter what, right? That's kind of what you're reaching for. You're trying to get, craft a pretty good piece of legislation. So the bill, officially titled An Act to Promote Responsible Outdoor Lighting, became law on January 7th with an implementation date of October 1st. Only covers new and replacement lighting. It also only is applicable to public property. The law will follow guidelines set out by the Illuminating Engineering Society. And here's what is included. Lights are dimmed after 10 p.m. until 7 a.m. or sunrise. Buildings can hold off for 1 hour after closing to dim lights, provided it's past 10 p.m. Building lighting deemed non-essential, which includes signage and landscape lighting, must be turned off during nighttime hours. Light trespass can't exceed 0.1 lux onto a natural area, and 3,000 Kelvin lighting is the highest color temperature range. What's not included is roadwork, provided it's temporary, is exempt. Road and walkways that are federally regulated are exempt. Local governments are not required to adopt their own responsible lighting policies, which was a consideration earlier, but then was struck out. The Maine Office of Community Affairs is developing a model ordinance for communities if they wish to find in their heart to be a responsible community. And buildings protected by historical preservation laws are exempt. Most sports fields, most sports lighting, holiday lighting, and all ski areas are exempt. I will note the bill had very strong backing from birding groups, in this case, the Maine Audubon Society. Last month, we saw Palo Alto, California pass an ordinance not terribly far from this, again, heavily backed by birding groups and the Sierra Club. Jim, I think you probably have the most experience here on this. What do you think about this Maine bill, first off?
From what you described, I think it would need to be retweaked because like sports facilities being exempt, there is actual lighting, that would help, light pollution concerns at the sports facilities. Case in point, we have one of our advocates here in New Jersey within their community where they were complaining about the sports fields lighting, and they're actually making the changes that are needed to correct it. I think the sports fields should not be exempt. They should be made to comply. I wish the car dealerships would too, because they're bad.
Yeah, they can be pretty bad sometimes. Shweta, I feel like oftentimes with policy, we have this, in English, it's nyctophobia, which simply means a fear of darkness and night. And it feels so prevalent in public policy. How do you work through this? I know, you had a great splash in the news a few months ago, and, I know it was still a step in the right direction, but it isn't fully where you want to be. How do you bridge that?
Yeah, it is very true. That word is very precise because whenever I start talking about the protection of the darkness, people instantly think that I'm talking about switching off all the lights. And it is a real concern in India about safety, about women's safety. And also it makes me think about this tribal village that I'm working with currently. After speaking with them and after telling them about this night sky preservation, they told me that their real concern is harm that is there with the wildlife. The wildlife is pretty close by. They have, usual sightings. So if they turned off the lights, then they feel unsafe. And take note of this. This village right now does not have any lights. They have open bulb lights with the electricity poles that they have. But an NGO is trying to put in new street lights, and I'm trying to tell them that you have a natural asset here that you can preserve with the smart lighting. And so I have to divert the conversation more towards smart lighting rather than dark sky protection and this fear of being unsafe or the fear of the dark. And this village actually created history in India because tribal communities have protection with something that we called PESA Act, where these communities for their own villages can take decisions against any development that is creating any harm to their natural environment. So under this PESA Act, they took a resolution to install smart lighting because they got convinced when I told them that you can install motion sensors, you can install lights on the lower height, closer to where you're actually walking, and dim the lights at night when you're not using it. And this became like the first village in India to use their constitutional powers and pass this resolution. So I'm very proud of this movement that happened. Same with the cultural department, the archaeology department, and their guidelines, where they are completely banning any human interaction at night at the protected sites to protect the night so that they don't have to introduce lights there. And as we are saying, everything the dark sky community is saying is talk about smart lighting, be it with the smart car, be it with the LED lights. But this fear of night comes with this feeling that bright white light is equal to security. And that's what we need to change. And that is the most difficult thing to change because, at least in India, it's also sort of equated with development. More the light, more the development. So that's really hard to change there.
I like to add to what she was saying in reference to the smart lighting. You can enhance your personal and community safety by having the light sensors, as opposed to the areas that keep the lights on all the time, because those make hidden shadows. But if the light goes on and off, it's less likely a perpetrator is going to stay there because the lights suddenly go on, they're shocked, and they're leaving. And it also alerts you to something going on. So those light sensors, to me, is really important to enhance your safety, as opposed to keeping a light on.
It's really interesting hearing those conversations because when we think about, say, football stadiums, even in the nearest city to me, which is called Bristol, you see stadium lights and they are not shining downwards. It to me comes across that it's more a decorative feature. And also we have such intense light, like we have discussed already, what is the necessity for that? Whether it is just to optimize revenue or whether it is just to create a bit of drama. But at the same time, it's this attitude, isn't it? That we need to be using less light. And even I can take it from the photographic visual sense that even just a single ounce of light pollution, we take long exposures and you see that light spread throughout your image and it's almost like a hidden world. So by taking the images to demonstrate what on earth is going on here, even probe lighting, I know it's more of an entertainment perspective, but again, it just shows you that scale of how far light can travel in our atmosphere. Is terrifying.
Exactly, Josh. And I think astrophotography is sort of bridging the gap between curiosity and science there, So I don't think it's just for entertainment. When you show the pictures to people, they know what's going on out there. And I think in general sense, humans want to see how it works. They want to see how it works. So even with this lighting, if the municipalities, if one district, one forest, one tourist place changes their lights to the smart lighting as per their needs, the other departments, the other administrators will be able to see that, witness that, and will be able to change that accordingly and get rid of their fear of this darkness.
Yeah. The thing with the astrophotography, and I'm all for astrophotography, I do it myself, but when you're presenting these concerns to the community or government officials, if you start with astronomy and astrophotography, then that comes off as self-serving. So when I do my presentations, it's always in reference to the environment, our own personal health, our own community health. So I kind of shy away from that in the conversation. As much as it hurts me because I'm, president of an astronomy group, I try to refrain from that, when we're trying to get the point across.
Well, let's jump into what we're talking about here. I have this article from People in Nature, which surveyed 1,000 New Zealanders to understand how folks balance their preference for artificial light at night and a perception of natural darkness, right? Researchers asked participants to rate the importance of lighting benefits alongside darkness benefits. Lighting benefits in this case included traffic safety, so-called prevention of property crime, and so-called personal safety lighting in parks. Conversely, darkness benefits included things more intrinsic, such as peace and solitude, being able to see stars, and protecting the natural rhythms of nature. They found that, unsurprisingly, lighting deemed to be related to safety rated very important, while most of the benefits from darkness landed at a moderately important bucket. Despite urban residents ranking the artificial lights benefits higher, they showed the same level of appreciation for natural darkness to that of rural residents. Here's what caught my attention, though, was when asked about the delivery modes of artificial light at night, a full third surveyed said that they're in favor of motion sensing street lighting, with higher percentages on uses deemed more trivial, a la sports fields. And to that note, Jim, I just looked up my notes for the main thing. It's if a sports field is vacant, it applies to the same rule as the businesses, I believe, for Maine. So that's 30.9% in this New Zealand study said that they were in favor of on-demand street lighting, motion sensing street lighting. And 38.7% were in favor of motion lighting in a park situation. I feel like that's actually a sizable amount. That's a material amount of people. I also have a study out of remote sensing, which asked how much light is needed for someone to feel safe. A team out of Dalian, China, gathered satellite imagery and utilized on-the-ground measurements to assess light levels. The team measured lighting at 304 locations, including 3 broad categories: roads, business districts, and squares. Surveyed 2,300 people about their perceptions of safety. They found that brightness and safety perception incurred diminishing returns at a certain point, meaning at some point the light doesn't make individuals feel much safer. They found the following comfort levels: 4 to 10 lux for roads, 5 to 38 lux for business districts, and 6 to 13 lux for squares, which were notably lower than China's current national standards. And also note that they were quite wide-ranging. And I believe that these standards are kind of right in line or just below the IES suggested standards as well. So a couple articles talking about the thing we're just talking about there, safety and perception of safety and how much light you need, right? Shweta, so you had mentioned that the community you were working with, you were able to get some smart lighting installed, right? And now, had these people seen more abrasive lighting or more, I guess, less controlled lighting?
No, not really. But as I mentioned to you, there is no light in that village at all. And whenever they travel to bigger cities, they've seen more light. So for them, definitely more light equaled with more development. But I discussed with them various relatable scenarios. I discussed their concern for safety. I discussed that motion sensors could help. And I told them that having too much light and not proper light could harm the animals and their general cycle and their connection with nature. And I also told them the benefits they can have with astrotourism if they install this smart lighting. So I think just with that trust, they went on because I made it more relatable to them. And this is something that I've observed in these conversations. Rather than putting forward data and statistics, when you make it relatable to their day-to-day lives and the effects of light pollution on them, the animals, their farms, then they are more receptive about it.
And this lighting, I assume, can you just describe a little bit of the light sources? How's this work in the community? How do these actual lights work?
The open lights that they have?
And maybe I'm misunderstanding. Are these smart? And when you say smart lights, what?
They are not yet been installed.
Oh, they have not yet been installed. I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, we are in the process.
Okay, so we'll have to check back. We'll have to check back to see how that actually, what the perception is. I'll be curious about that. Moving on a little bit here, I have another piece out of Building and Environment where a team evaluated nighttime lighting in 7 commercial zones within Nanjing, China's busiest shopping area. They measured the 4 main light sources, including LED screens, commercial signboards, decorative facades, and advertising facades. They surveyed 179 pedestrians about their visual experiences. And the researchers assessed 9 light indicators and found that the luminance from LED screens, signboards, and luminant facades consistently exceeded, shocker, recommended levels for those thresholds. Their analysis showed that contrast-based metrics, which compare brightness differences between light sources and surroundings, were slightly more effective than brightness measured by predicting how folks actually perceived the lighting environment. Little interesting piece there. I do have some good news from France. The Alpes Azur Mercantour part of France became a designated International Dark Sky Reserve back in 2019. Currently boasts about 56% conversion to what I'm assuming are dark sky friendly streetlights. Congratulations to those guys. It's up from 19% back when they started this project. Christmas lights, guys. Did you guys hear about this? This is a fun little one. I know we're past Christmas, but these stories come out usually later in my feed, so that's why I'm here. Came across a piece from Fast Company, which talked about a business named as True Tone. Now, I have no affiliation. We don't get anything from them. Don't do anything. I just thought this was interesting. Most holiday lights now appear to be colder, bluer lighting. In addition to the color of the lights, you have an unforeseen level of light pollution from the brightness, up to 50% more per 2023 study. True Tone looks to be kind of like they want to kind of buck some of this trend. I don't know if they're going to buck the brightness trend, but with using LEDs, they're actually recreating the warmth of holiday lighting, and it's based on the coating around the light itself, and then they even put in a fake filament. So these lights are warm, super warm. And Josh, you're a fan of the 80s. So I think, did you have a chance to look at this? I think this is right up your alley, what you're looking for.
It is. I can relate to it from a slightly different angle, however, Bill, in the sense that, especially here in the UK, what is being called Generation Z or Generation Z is really taking on a more nostalgic approach as we go forward. So I know this might be to do with modern developments, etc. But even I've seen this shift from blue lighting and Christmas decorations to the more vintage reds, greens, yellows, all those beautiful colours. And so it just strikes me really like changing attitudes, ethos to how lighting is being used, coated and shielded in certain ways. And yes, I know we can respect as astronomers as well that it is temporary light sources throughout December. You expect that when you go out for a night of stargazing or taking images in my instance. But yeah, it's an interesting discussion point, isn't it? It's just looking at how, different light applications are being used and shifts towards them as well.
Yeah, these are very warm lights, super warm lights. And I talk about the emotion again. It would probably, being a little more joy than having the sharp blue and the sharp bluish green lights that you see around that time of year nowadays with the LED strings. Well,
yeah. I'm sort of like a Christmas junkie. For me, I can even go further back to like the lighting in the 60s. I found much, much better creating that Christmas enjoyment than what the lighting that you have today. Like a lot of the white light, very harsh. And, to me, that kind of like takes away from it. The color lighting is better. And I've actually purchased old-fashioned style lighting that's much softer to use for decoration. A good example for that kind of like softness of lighting is in the movie The Christmas Story. When the old man, with his wife is sitting there after the kids had already gone to bed. That's the kind of lighting I enjoy.
Yeah, it brings out just you don't feel like you need to have defenses up with that kind of lighting, right? Naturally.
Right.
You feel more just laid back and enjoying it. So, yeah. Well, glad that there's a little bit of a trend going back there. It wouldn't be neat if, we saw a big swing. I don't know, Josh, we'll see if your belief in Gen Z will work out. I don't know. Well, this has been a great show, guys. I want to thank my panel for giving me the opportunity to talk with you guys, and I want you guys to take a chance to be able to plug yourselves as well. Shweta, where can people learn more about all the work that you do, AstronEra, pretty much everything? You do a lot, Shweta. Where can people learn more about it?
We are on all the social media channels with AstronEra, so you can find us there, or our website is astronera.org. If you want to get in touch with me personally, I'll be more than happy if you reached out to me via my email, shweta@astronera.org, or I'm most active on LinkedIn, so just send me a message there and connect with me.
Sounds good. Jim, where can people learn more about what you're doing? How can they, if they're interested in Dark Sky, New Jersey, how do they find out?
It will come right up at the top if you Google us Dark Sky, New Jersey. You can also find a link to it from the astra-nj.com, and that'll take you to the Dark Sky page as well.
All right. And Josh, where can people learn about what you're doing? I know you have an incredibly active Instagram and your book. How can people learn all about this?
So you can find my work on my website, which is joshjuryphotomedia.com. Otherwise, you can find me on most social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, X. But also, if you want to purchase your own copy of 52 Assignments Night Photography, available in all major booksellers, UK, Europe, and US.
Great. Well, I want to thank my guests one more time. And before we go, have some additional people to credit. I want to thank our incredible and awesome social media core, including folks who donate their time to help us put together a robust social media presence. Those being Emily Byers and Laura Taylor. You guys are doing awesome work. Thank you. And of course, I want to thank you, listener. You are literally what keeps us fueled to do this every month. This show is a side project for me, and I'm sure it's a side project for pretty much all of us working in it. I work all week and then put additional 60 hours or so per month trying to put this together for you guys at home. So I hope you find it informative, hope you find it useful. We have a new 2025 ecology wrap up out there. Definitely check that out. It's under the research tab on the website on lightpollutionnews.com. And if you like what you hear, why not consider becoming a supporter? Help us continue what we do. You can learn more over on our website, lightpollutionnews.com, or in today's show notes under support the show. And it wouldn't be a show without me crediting my man, Caden, for the incredible work he does, making these shows sound as good as they do, and my wife, Caitlin, who essentially manages everything we do here at Light Pollution News. Thank you once again. This show was recorded on January 25th. I'm your host, Bill McGeaney, reminding you to only shine the light where it's needed.